Conversations with Bob and Sherry is where the extrovert artist meets the introvert engineer. It's where analysis intersects experience. Join us as we explore news and culture to better understand what's true and important. Hi, Sherry.
Hey, Bob. How are you?
Good, good. Back from vacation.
How's the weather been?
Hot, very humid. Florida.
I was channeling my Joe Biden. Asking about the weather. We're going to talk about the movie today, right? We're going to start with the latest.
Right.
The
Barbie.
craze. The Barbie. Who knew is going to be a worldwide, thing is internationally and sold a lot of tickets.
Mana and I did get our Barbenheimer in, so we saw both Oppenheimer and Barbie.
Okay, so the thoughts?
Conservatives criticize Barbie for feminism and things like that, but my thought was, it's Barbie. What do you expect? It's different when you have classic characters or like Marvel characters, and then you kind of do weird things, to try to force a woke message. But I mean, Barbie, there's always been feminist debate around Barbie. And I actually like that they addressed the classic debate. I mean, one of the early complaints was, well, Barbie creates an unrealistic body image for girls. It's bad for girls. And then, the company retorted, well, we make Barbie the president, and Barbie's an astronaut, and Barbie's, doing all these jobs. So, yeah, I don't know how much of that was to counter the negativity, but, I mean, it created a great product because there's so many different versions. You just got to keep buying them.
Well, here's the thing about the creating an unrealistic idea of a doll and all, first of all, if that doll looks like a regular person, no one's going to want it, right? The whole thing, the fact that
right.
Barbie is such a successful brand is because it was an image that little girls will want to strive for. Not so much in a unhealthy way, but think about the Cabbage doll, any of the dolls. None of them
right.
are realistic. Think about the Marvel hero dolls. They're unrealistic. You don't expecting guys walking around looking like that. So
sure.
It's never to say, oh, you create a Ken doll, and Ken is an unrealistic image of a man, and how do that's going to influence little boys, but it's always on the women, right? Is that we're either victims or or whatever, but women can't decide for themselves. I personally collected 200 Barbies, and they're still in boxes. I just want to show. Here's one of my Harley Barbies. This is but it's pretty. So we went to see the movie because I wanted to see it, and my son wanted to see it. He's a 12-year-old. He just he loved Will Ferrell, so he wanted to go see Will Ferrell and make fun of the movie per se. And I loved the movie. My son loved the movie. And my husband's reaction was like, why do they have to make this movie? When we left the theater, he goes, why? So that was his reaction. But I thought the movie was great. And it kind of also, to me, it kind of helped the dialogue of equality. Like my son was just saying to me, it's not about feminism, it's about equality. In the beginning of the movie, it was a Barbie's world, or a Barbie's house, and Ken just lived in this house forever chasing Barbie. All the Kens were chasing Barbie. And then when they come to the real world, Ken's like, wow, I'm being respected and I actually feel good. And went back to the Barbie land and kind of turned things upside down a little bit. And then they have to compromise. I mean, that's all relationship, right?
Unfortunately, I didn't see a compromise. I thought they missed that opportunity, but
I think there was a compromise. I mean, it was... they went back to the way the Barbie land is, and Ken now understands, hey, I don't have to live for Barbie. I don't have to chase anything. I need to be Ken. I need to find Ken. I feel there's some kind of compromise there.
My daughter said the same thing. It has to be a woman's take, because to me that was weak. That did nothing.
I thought the ending was weak, because I thought Barbie was getting a job, but she was going to see an OBGYN. I was like, oh, that was kind of weak ending for me.
Well, I kind of thought that was funny, because they were playing off the joke that they didn't have any genitalia. So now that she's a real girl, she has. By the way, if anyone wants to see it, you're going to get a lot of spoilers already. So.
I
thought it was funny. I liked the ending.
It killed the woke system, right? So being this traditional Barbie, being a girl, it's okay to be a traditional Barbie, to seek, dress nice, look nice. There's nothing wrong with it. The one thing I do have to tell you, and which before we start the show, I was my son really want to get on the show and talk about the Barbie movie. I said, oh, no, you can't be. But I have to tell you, if you look at all the Barbies in the Barbie movie, there's, the traditional Barbie, there's the Asian Barbie doll, black Barbie doll, all the smart women. There's even a pregnant Barbie, even though it was discontinued. And, there's a Barbie was fairly large. It's a big girl. And I believe there's a transgender Barbie in there as well. I forgot what her position was. But I was just telling, my husband, I said, it's kind of unfair, because on the Ken side, every Ken was in good shape, have hair, and it's like, well, if you're going to be diverse, inclusive on the Barbie side, maybe you should be diverse, inclusive on Ken's side. That should be Ken with the dad bods, right? That should be a Ken with no hair.
Yeah, that would never have.
Yeah, that should be a Ken that's slightly out of shape. But that doesn't happen, and there's no Ken that's in wheelchair either.
Initially, you see Barbie and Barbie World, and it's all about Barbies, and they don't really do anything. They just, hi, hello, they ride around, and the Kens are sort of like, hangers on. They don't really have any jobs. They don't have any purpose. They're like an accessory.
Right.
So then she
Ken
goes
was
into
the accessory to Barbie, just to be fair, in the actual doll world. Yeah.
Yeah. So he's just like an object.
Right.
And when they go into the real world, Barbie, was feeling out of place, because she's used to women running everything and women being in charge. And one good scene was when she went over to a construction site expecting to see women working there, which in Barbie world would be all women. And there were men there catcalling her and things like that. She got really uncomfortable. So they were trying to show the opposite, between Barbie world and the real world. It's certainly a feminist message. But Ken, when he went into the real world, was like, this is cool. People recognize me. They acknowledge me. I've got, all these, I can do a lot of things. I have power. I have significance. So when they go back into the real world, somehow, they didn't really show how, but somehow the Kens all took over.
Right.
And the women were serving them. So they were like playing sports and partying, and the women were serving beer. The president was like, it's just the women waiting on the men. And I have to, so they took over all the Barbie houses. Before that, Ken didn't even have a house.
Right.
So, it was like, and they were going to change the Constitution, and, something about Ken's being in charge. I don't really know. So what the Barbies did was, they messed with the Ken's heads, using their affections, their attraction to women, turned them against each other to fight. And then when the vote went down, the Kens were all fighting one another. So the Barbies went in, all, voted to keep the old Constitution, and they reinstated themselves and all that. Well, but then, there was a scene while the Kens were in charge where Barbie was telling him how this affected her and bothered her. And he goes, well, now you know how I feel, and there were some moments like that. So I thought, to me, the best thing would have been to promote a message of equality, not one better than the other, but to say, we showed you one world where it was all about the women, the men were just little objects and accessories. And then we showed you another one. By the way, the real world is not like Barbie. It was at one time. So, I think a lot of young people don't realize how much progress has been made in racism and sexism and things like that. But these things will never be fully resolved. But at any rate, I thought they missed an opportunity to show a move towards equality. And I haven't heard anyone say this yet, but did you notice the women won by basically rigging the election?
Right.
They what do they call that when you intimidate or prevent certain groups of people from voting? Voter suppression. They suppressed the Ken vote. Right. So they stole it.
They stole it.
How's that a good message?
I think the way I look at it, if I live in the Barbie's world, and which is not a reality world, so if you notice that the Barbie land was created by Mattel in the movie,
right,
to have this perfect world for the girls, all kinds of Barbie doesn't have an identity per se. Everyone named Barbie, again, everybody named Ken. But then when they come to the real world, there's a real little girls. There's a real single mom. She has to work. There's a real mother at school, and they don't have the body image. They don't all dress up. They don't have the perfect outfit and the colorful house, whatever. So to me, as a female, I'm thinking, well, the Barbie world's pretty good, right? I live in this la la land. I don't have to work. I don't have to eat, and I don't have to. All I have to do is dress up, look pretty, and party all night. There's really no real purpose, even though it was a Barbie's world. But at the end of the day, there's not much going on. There's really not a real purpose happening.
Did it seem fun though to you? Was it an appealing?
If I was 20 years younger, yes. I think if I was a little girl watching this movie thinking, this is fantastic. But now I'm no longer in my 20s. I'm no longer young. I lived my life. And to me, if that's every day, I think that would be pretty boring, right?
Yeah.
If that's all I do every day. There's no purpose. That'll be very boring. And then I think it's good to have the back and forth between a man and a woman. That's why we're married. That's why we have a family, and we all, you have children and grandchildren. I have kids, and it gives your life a purpose. So, and that portion, I think, is kind of showed the real world. There's a mother and the daughter, and they're doing stuff, and she found a purpose to connect with her daughter through Barbie. And my thing is, I think, having this movie is to revive the Barbie's marketing, right? Because Barbie doll, it's on its way out.
Well, Lego did it, yeah.
Yeah, Lego did it, and I think this is going to revive the whole Barbie industry.
Absolutely.
And my son actually said, I bet you they're going to bring Alan back.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. It's marketing. It's about merchandising, really.
It's about merchandising. Yeah. I think they're going to really revive the Barbie's merchandising because little girls don't go after Barbie doll anymore. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you see, there's a doll, I forgot the name. So there's American Girl doll that was very expensive.
Right.
And the clothing is very expensive. And then there is also this I forgot the name of it, but they're like real goth looking dolls.
I don't remember that one.
Yeah, no, they're on the market. I'll show you next time. But I think I kind of like the fact that they're bringing Barbie back, not because I think that, because I have a collection of 200 of them, but the fact that I think they're bringing that feminism back, right? Barbie movie actually promotes being feminine, not feminism per se, but it promotes being feminine. It promotes, look, I dress up, I look good. I felt like it promotes it. It kind of helped vilify the fact pink, bring the pink back and bring all that, nice clothing, looking nice back. And I think that's a great thing. And it'd be very interesting to see where the merchandising is going. I bet you the Barbie is going to fly off the shelf this Christmas.
I thought of something as you were talking about the plot line. Mm-hmm. So, I was looking at it, as a social commentary, but, you know, they made it clear in the movie that Barbie's purpose was how they, you know, how they impacted the lives of the girls who played with them. So remember when Barbie was kind of starting to get cellulite, things like that? It's because of an older woman playing with her Barbie dolls again and her daughter. So in that aspect, you know, I guess that makes sense now what happened with the Kens, because no boys are playing with Barbie, right? It's a girl thing. So
and no boys are playing with Ken either. Well,
no. So Ken's really, you know, as a toy, doesn't really have a purpose or a significance. So, you know, if you forget the social commentary and just think in terms of the plot line where it's the dolls and how they help the girls and, you know, influence the lives of girls, then it makes sense. But
well, yeah, Ken was just there because Barbie needed a boyfriend, right? So if you play with Barbie dolls, after a while, they need a boyfriend.
I guess. And girls want boyfriends, so you know, but yeah. So in that world,
boys want boyfriends too, which that's okay.
Ken is just an accessory in that world anyway. That was his point. That was the whole point of him,
right?
You know, but girls didn't want him to talk. You know, they didn't want him to be in different roles. He was just, you know,
this was just Ken. He was
like eye candy.
Yeah, he was an eye candy.
He was a trophy dude.
Yeah. Well, the thing is that, you know, it's really funny because G.I. Joe was a doll for boys, right?
Right.
And there's like $6 million man. My husband still have a doll, which is a Steven whatever. And then Marvel, all the Marvel dolls. Notice there's not a female accessory to those guy dolls, but there's a boy accessory to the Barbie, right? Barbie has Ken. Yeah. But G.I. Joe, it took the movie G.I. Jane to have finally they have a G.I. Jane doll, but it wasn't flying off the shelf. But I mean, yeah, I think that Ken just like a, you know, it's just there for Barbie. The whole creation of Ken is there for the Barbie doll.
So you said it was good to bring feminism back. What do you consider
no, not feminism. I meant being feminine. It's good to
be feminine. Oh, right, femininity. Right.
Yeah,
bring femininity back. Okay, so we're not going to have a feminism discussion.
Well, and then the definition to me of feminism is very different from everybody else's anyway. You know, I never believe men and women are equal. I feel like we have different talent. Men and women should be doing separate things. You know,
well, there's a difference between being equal and being the same.
Yeah, I mean, I would say if I had a choice, I probably would still love to have a choice whether I would work or not. Not with my personality, that probably never happened. But if I would have a choice, I would say, yeah, you go to work. I'll be at home taking care of the children, whatever. I think I didn't feel that way, but not as the older I get, the more I feel like, yeah, it should have been that way. So I think it just biologically, we're very different, men and women, you know. So this whole thing about feminism happened after World War II anyway, when all the men went to war and women have to work.
You know, one of the bad things, one of the bad things about the sort of left-wing social justice narrative, I spent a lot of time with my daughter. She's in her 30s. And even her, it surprised me, doesn't really have the perspective of how much progress we made in women's rights, racism, things like that. Because in the narratives that they put out there, they want to talk about slavery. And unfortunately, too many conservatives want to pretend like slavery didn't matter or didn't happen. But I think they're making a mistake, because the problem with it is they point to, look at this horrible things that happen here. Look at the horrible things that happen here. And then they pretty much say, and that's what racism is. So it gives young people the perspective that all these things are still happening, or those attitudes are all the same. And they're really not. We've made a lot of progress. I mean, Black Wall Street. I mean, people say, well, look at Black Wall Street. Well, do you really think that could happen today? Do you really think if it did happen that the people would get away with it? No way. Yeah. No way. I mean, you see mixed race couples all over the place, and people don't even give them a second look. I mean, I'm a kid from the 60s and 70s. No, it was not safe to be a mixed race couple back then. Now, are there places where people might harass you or say nasty, mean things? Sure there are. But, it was literally unsafe just about anywhere you went if you were a mixed-race couple in the 60s and even in the 70s. I don't know about Asian, to America, but certainly black and white. We've made a lot of progress. And that's why I've been trying to get my daughter to watch The Magnificent Mrs. Maisel, because it shows to me, I think it's an accurate window into what it was really like for women without being mean-spirited. It shows exactly what the world was like and how she just, regardless, she didn't hate men. She didn't hate people. She just did her thing. And, it to me is a very accurate portrayal. If you were to go back in time, that's what it would be like. And, when they make movies or tell stories about when women didn't have the rights that they have now, it's always very mean-spirited. It's always very hateful, and men were just horrible to women. And sure there was that, but I'm sorry, that wasn't the norm.
Well, when I went to Hong Kong in the 1980s, coming from China is very, at the time when we left, that was one thing the Communist Party promoted right away is, equality between men and women. Men can work, women can work. So no women took their husband's last name. When I went to Hong Kong in the 1980s, even till today, is still a very traditional role of men and women. Now, women did work, but more in a more service industry, women carry the role of secretaries and very little women in management, but most of the men work, and some of the women were still housewives in Hong Kong. This is in the 1980s. No one complained. Those women enjoy their role perfectly, right? Mm-hmm. Their husband go to work, they get their kids to school, and then what they would do is they go shopping for the day, they come home, get dinner ready, wait for their kids and husband to come back. Because in Hong Kong, there's no school bus, so all the kids come back. They live a pretty happy life. They go catch up with their girlfriend having lunch. So I grew up in that environment for about 7 years. The women are carrying that certain role, and no one complained. The women in that role are perfectly happy, and the woman that's working wishes they can be in that role. Yeah. So it was a have a kind of situation. So
sure.
When I came here, I went to Oklahoma, and it's the same thing. The husband worked, the women stay home with the children. No one complained. And then as I come to college and University of Pittsburgh, and you hear more and more, oh, women needs to be equal. I'm like, nobody was complaining. The women were in that role, unless it's a very abusive husband, right?
Right.
The women in those roles, they're fine. They're happy to be home taking care of their children. Mm-hmm. Their husband go to work, come home, hand them the paycheck, and they balance the checkbook, and they just carry different responsibilities. So I don't know, but I love the movie.
It should be about freedom and equality. Women should get to play whatever role they really want to play, have that option.
But does men have that option? Men doesn't have that option.
Not as much. As much.
If you are a stay-at-home dad, society would kind of look down upon.
You're not a real man.
You're not a real man, right? If you're a stay-at-home mom, oh, good for her.
Yeah.
But you better not tell people you're a stay-at-home dad.
I made a comment. My daughter and I had a lot of conversations, and I made a comment about the negatives of feminist movement. Mm-hmm. And she was taken aback. What negatives? Like, she was kind of indignant. Like, what negatives could there And I prefaced it with everything. This is sort of, sin in our world. No matter what we do, there's always going to be negative side of it. There's no law that's perfect. There's no policy that's perfect. There's no system ever made by man that's perfect. And that's supports the, doctrine of sin in the Bible. But so I gave her some examples, like sexual responsibility. You know, so many women now, you know, it's so much more common for men to just impregnate women and take no responsibility whatsoever.
Right.
It's like, well, it's her choice, right? Her body, her choice. She
Her
can
body,
choose if
her
she wants to
choice.
have it or
Yep.
not. It's not on me at all.
Right.
You know, and like you said, the pressure. Part of the women going into the workforce, I believe, helped facilitate the long-term government-induced inflation. So the more when the wife goes out into the work world, the family's doing better. We have more money. But guess what? That allowed inflation to continue to grow. And now now people are really feeling that squeeze. And younger people are saying, oh, the boomers ruined it. They did this. Well, you know, in a lot of cases, the pressure you're feeling now would have happened before if there wasn't so much pressure for women to go out at work. And a lot of women, like you just said, didn't feel like they had a choice now. They have to go to work where they would rather not. You know, and then they put their kids in
I would
daycare.
rather not. I mean, the thing is, like, 2020 is when I really experienced it. I mean, from the time I was a younger girl and just said, well, you need to go make something of yourself. And, you know, my husband didn't want me to work when we first got married. And I'm like, well, geez, I went to college. I can't. So I went to work, and then it just day in and day out, day in and day out. And then we had a child, and my job did not allow me to be home. We sent him to daycare. But 2020 hit, it's like, okay, you're forced to stop.
Right.
And I was able to spend a whole year with my son, homeschooled him. And I realized how much I missed. So it's like, okay, if I would have carried that traditional women role in the very beginning with our marriage, I would have say, okay, husband, you go to work, and I'll fight with him about it. And we would have had probably more than one child, and I would have been home taking care of the kids and, you know, do whatever.
Right.
You know, it is what it is, but then you think about that kind of things as you get older. You don't think about that when you are younger. Now, I see coming into the the bar establishment, I see a lot of young single moms in their 30s. They have children. They're raising these kids by themselves. Mm-hmm. There's no men. And then I had a guy came in. He has 7 kids. He's 42 years old. His 26-year-old sitting next to him. Okay? He said, yeah, I was a father at 14. I said, well, how old was the mother? 17. I said, what did you do? He goes, oh, the mom took care of the kid. Mm-hmm. So he would just still can be a 14-year-old while the 17-year-old have to carry a baby, have to raise a baby. He can just go off, do whatever. So you're right. The feminism is if it's your body, your choice, I have no say in this. If you decide to keep the baby, you decide. You decide to give up the baby, you decide. And that's up to you, your body, your choice. So I'm out.
Right.
So...
Yeah. And well, the other thing, there was, you know, it went through that period where celebrating women in the workplace and elevating all that and the way, you know, so it basically devalued a stay-at-home mom. And the message was clear in the culture. If you didn't have a job and you weren't pursuing a career, you're less of a woman. Right. Now, we've improved even since then. I mean, I think we're heading in but hey, this is one of the problems with the social justice movement in our country today. They don't want to recognize the progress that we've made. If we could all start being honest about the progress we've made in every area, you know, it's like when Barack Obama won the presidency. I didn't vote for him. I don't share his views whatsoever. But I felt that's a good thing for the U.S. to have the first black president. And it just blew me away when there's so many people. It actually made things worse. People got on TV and said, this means absolutely nothing. It means racism is still alive and well. Well, it doesn't mean racism went away, but it means something. Well, I mean, come on. If you could go back in time and tell Frederick Douglass we just elected a black man to be president of the United States, does that mean anything? He'll say that means everything. Everything.
I think the race relationship got worse with Obama being the president.
It did.
And I felt like some of the African American people deep down felt like the only reason he was elected, and some of the white people probably say the only reason he was elected because he's black. So, again, you bypass the you bypass the person's ability, the intelligence, and everything. Obama's skin color becoming the topic of the discussion, right? Now we have the first black president, and people, but forget about his policy. We're just celebrating because he's black, whether you agree or disagree with the policy. That's when the left was so pissed off when Hillary did not get elected, because after the first black president, they were looking for the first women president. And when Trump got elected, I think the pissed off is like, we did not make history because we wanted the first female president. Forget about the person's ability to govern. Now we have the first geriatric president with, I don't know,
the first senile president.
Senile president. And first, the most racist president. He put the most racist policy in place. That whole crime bill. He was the student of the KKK senator. I mean, the first crime bill was drafted by Joe Biden. So now you went from the first black president, first business president, outsider. Now you have the first racist senile president. There we go. And look what's happening to our country right now. Like, China and Russia had a joint military practice outside Alaska.
Yeah.
11 ships. I mean, when did that ever happen in the modern history of the United States?
Well, I felt that this was going to be the next step because, BRICS is basically a response to the G7. So the G7, these countries that share similar government styles, democracy and values and things, they formed together and said, we're going to work together and basically control or greatly influence the economics around the world. So if you're a country that doesn't embrace our values, our ideas about human rights or whatever, then you're not part of us. And we're going to be making the rules. Well, so with the China BRICS form, they said, well, we're just going to do our own. We're going to do our own economic alliance. And, the next logical step is military, especially with what's going on in Ukraine and Russia. So, so that's what I believe that was. So this is their response to a NATO. We said, well, we're NATO and we're the powerful countries and we're making all the rules around the world. And China and Russia are saying, nope, not anymore. We're forming our own alliance, and here we are. We're going to come here into Alaska and rattle sabers and show force. So, this is really escalating towards a World War type scenario.
I think we have a World War III right now. It's happening in Ukraine, right?
Yep.
NATO and BRIC is fighting in Ukraine, basically. Russia is backed by China, Iran, a lot of the smaller African countries, and then you have Ukraine is backed by the Western culture. But here's where Western culture is going to. Western culture is embracing criminals. Western culture is embracing, feminism, transgenderism, is putting down masculinity. So we actually, in a war situation, the recruit to military is down. If we actually go into a war, my money, it's on BRIC. I mean, they have the masculinity. They have the...
Where do we get our money? I mean, where do we get our weapons?
Exactly. They just say, okay, we're going to...
We're depleting our munitions. Well, so is Russia, but China's not.
China's not. China's making...
So if we get into an allies type World War situation, I mean, China still has all their weaponry. And Russia's being depleted, the U.S. is being depleted, but who's going to replenish the U.S.? Where do we manufacture this stuff?
Well, another thing is we have a president that's compromised. That's the reason I stopped watching the news. The news like, oh, big revelation, Biden is compromised. We know Biden's compromised 4 years ago.
Right.
In 2020, we know he was compromised. This is a big news today.
Trump calls Ukraine with Zelensky to say, hey, I know that Biden and his son have done some corrupt things. I want evidence of that. And he said, for the military aid, either directly or implied that they wouldn't get their military aid. That was leaked to the press. Okay, and now we find out that now we find out how much the Bidens really are in bed with these guys. So, basically, the Biden ally is Ukraine. So Trump basically, they said, well, we're going to leak this. I mean, we're going to expose it. So Trump was impeached for it. And now the same thing's basically been revealed that the Bidens are doing with Ukraine. Oh, and by the way, just write me another check. Write me another check. I mean, we got to protect Ukraine. We got to protect Ukraine. So, it just feels really bad.
For all fairness, I think Biden was just concerned about the weather in Ukraine. For all fairness. The weather. He wasn't concerned about anything else. He just called in to check on the weather to make sure his son is not cold or hot.
Is that what they said? I missed that.
They said it's like, oh, he just called in to check on the weather. He really didn't talk about anything else. So that's what they said. Yeah. So
well, here's a weird thing. So all my life, I've been identifying more with the conservatives, and it's been the conservatives and the Republicans that have been the war hawks, right? Yeah, USA, we're strong. We're going to win this militarily. And then, I think Trump, speaking to Iraq accurately the way he did, kind of started to break that down. But then you had the COVID nightmare where conservatives lost trust for the military, or not the military, conservatives lost their trust in the government. So suddenly we've done a flip. Now the Democrats and the progressives, they're the war hawks. Oh, it's Putin bad. And I feel like it's all because they used this Putin's an evil devil to go after Trump. Yeah. So they've seen how useful
that is.
This demonization thing can be. So, now they're the war hawks. They're the ones, we got to go to war. We got to go to war. And I'm sitting here like, I'm not comfortable with this. I'm not comfortable with any ideas. I mean, I believe that, we're the good guys if you're going to pick good guys and bad guys. But I look at what they're doing, our adversaries, and it makes sense to me. We have a G7 and we're exercising control over the economies around the world. They go, well, screw you. You're not going to let us in. We're going to do our own. And then we have NATO. And we say, we're going to force everybody to do it. And they say, well, we're going to do our own too. So, I mean,
here's my problem. My problem is
the whole thing makes me very nervous. Sorry,
it's really bad is the fact that our government, the media, is protecting one family, one party for power.
Right.
In doing that, they sacrifice the whole country. Not only sacrificing ourselves militarily, they sacrifice our culturally, they sacrifice our taxpayers' money for this war. They sacrifice our border. So all of it is to protect the Bidens being exposed, right? Because if that check stopped going to Ukraine just going to say, oh, here's all the dirt. If that we start going to China say all the dirt. If you remember years ago, David Letterman went on his show and apologized to his wife and saying, hey, I cheated on my wife with this intern, whoever it is. Because he was sent a blackmail for $4 million for not exposing that news. So
okay, I vaguely remember this.
Yes, I was a big David Letterman fan. So by exposing that for himself, by exposing himself that done the wrong thing, he's like, I am not going to have anybody blackmail me. So I'm just going to tell you guys what I did, what we did wrong, right? So if I was the Bidens right now, I would just say, you know what? I cannot take this country down just to cover myself. I'm going to resign. I will resign. Here's what I did. And no one going to chase him. Well, nobody going to chase him like they're prosecuting Trump right now. He's protected just because he's a Democrat. He's protected by his own right. People are just going to say, wow, he admitted his mistake. Let go. That would save our country a ton of money. There's a lot of good people from the Democrat side can run for president. It does not have to be Joe Biden. The fact that the Biden is not doing that and taking the whole country down with him, it is infuriating, right?
Yeah.
Because all he have to do is admit his fault and say, I'm resigning. I don't want to be a president. I'm not good for this position because I am compromised. What's wrong with that? What are they going to do to him? He's in his 80s. No one's going to do anything to him. But to drag the whole country, it's just like when they dragged the whole Russian collusion, the money that's spent, that dragged the country over for 4 years, to causing Trump cannot govern properly. He still did a hell of a job, even though getting dragged through the mud, proven is fake news. Proven that is something fake. But Hillary Clinton is not paying a price for this. The Democratic Party is not paying a price for this. It's absolutely, I mean, it's amazing because the people that normally are very quiet about politics is saying to me, I cannot believe what they're doing to Trump. I mean, these are not people that does not like him. These are people that did not vote for him. But Trump isn't being treated just like you and I, right? And actually worse, because he's being treated worse than everyday people. So people are seeing it. People are seeing this. That's what he said. I need another indictment to get elected.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, they look at the poll numbers and, you know, DeSantis was in the 20s. Trump was like 40. And then with each indictment, you know, Trump moves up in the polls and he's actually tied with Biden now. You know, yeah, he's out doing rallies and things, but I don't see them being televised. So, you know, it seems like the main issue, he's in the news for all these indictments, and it seems like it just keeps helping him.
Well, now they say they want to put, the Democrat want to put a camera in the courtroom. I thought to myself, okay, you're going to get him elected again. So
who wants to put the camera in the courtroom?
The Democrat asked to put camera in the courtroom, and Trump
said, awesome.
Sure. Trump's lawyer said, yeah, sure.
You know, and one of the arguments ought to be that the American people should see that. I mean, you know, you've got an ex-president who's running for election again. You have an active campaign season, and you have, I mean, you know, the president, the executive branch controls the Department of Justice. Sure, they say, well, we're going to let them do their thing, but it's not like the separation between the courts and the executives and the legislature. No, I mean, he's the chief executive over the federal government, and that includes the Justice Department.
Right.
So there's definite influence, big influence over what they pursue and how they pursue it. So how can you not make this as transparent as possible for the American people? I don't understand how you can argue against it.
Trump is all about it. He said,
and the truth is, if you're afraid that transparency is going to help Trump, then you shouldn't be indicting him.
Well, okay? I feel like if they do anything to this guy, if they do anything to Trump, whether to jail him, whatever, this country may be in a worse trouble than it is. And our foreign adversary would definitely take advantage of that. So you say you're getting very nervous. I think you have every reason to be nervous because this military, Russian and Chinese military practice of Alaska, it should be very concerning to everybody, but it's not being reported in the media. That should be reported on a day-to-day, hour-to-hour basis.
Yes. I mean, with what's going on, we need a very strong commander-in-chief, and we need a very strong military-focused, mission-focused military. And
we need to
honestly
change
say
our
we're
military
comfortable we
supply.
have that?
Yeah, we need to change our military supply away from China.
Right.
We can get Vietnam to provide us. We can get Mexico to provide us.
Can you imagine in the modern era any politician, president who would actually even talk about that?
No, but they should.
I can. Trump.
Trump, yeah. They really
Yeah, he
should.
talked about stuff like that all the time. We've got to bring this stuff back to the U.S. Remember, he used targeted tariffs and things like that, trying to bring certain critical manufacturing back to the United States.
You don't even
But
have to
that
do
just that
that.
rocks the apple cart of this whole globalist thing, and it threatens the money. It just blows me away how easily people are misled by this Trump pays no taxes crap, and when in reality, I mean, everything in the federal government is serving the rich people and this globalist system that we have that's hurting the American worker and the American people.
You don't even have to bring the critical manufacture back to the state. You got to bring to our allies. Bring it to
Sure.
Vietnam, be it the Philippines or Taiwan or Mexico. Just bring it, take it away from China. I don't think
I think we still have to, based on what happened during the pandemic, I think we still have to bring some back to the U.S. because if you're talking like, critical
I think pharmaceutical definitely.
antibiotics, even your allies aren't giving you the antibiotics
True.
if they need them.
India was stopping giving us. I mean, I think the
If you
pharmaceutical.
remember, the U.S. made it a point to say we're going to donate a certain amount of vaccines to these, poor countries, while every other country was just taking care of their own.
Right.
And initially, that's what we did.
Well, the pharmaceutical industry need to come back to the United States or even Canada.
Well,
I
I
mean,
think pharmaceutical and I think weaponry. I mean,
Yeah,
why aren't, I mean, I don't know where our weapons are made, to be honest with you. Probably should look into that.
Texas.
But it all should be here in the States.
Yeah, it should be here in the state.
Or, again, a significant portion of it. Because if you have nothing and you have nothing to ramp up. But
No.
even if you have a certain capacity for producing here, you can ramp it up if need be.
I'm trying to see where are the weapons made.
They may be assembled here, but they probably use, obviously they use integrated circuits. There's critical components that are bought from overseas. I seriously doubt that we're buying finished cruise missiles from China, but a lot of the parts that are going in them are coming from China.
Right, a lot of crucial parts. Even the boats and, small parts is France. Oh, 6 of the top 24 largest defense contractor outside US are based in France.
Okay.
2 of the company European missile manufacturer MDNA aerospace engine makers Safran. But then France now saying they cannot depend on United States. They need to start, trading with China in Chinese dollars. And I think one of our manufacturers started buying things from China in yuan.
I mean, the fact that Ukraine happened and how Biden's handled Ukraine has drastically changed the world.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's because, like I said, he should resign and say, hey, we made a mistake. This is what we did. And then just quietly go in the night. No one will find him. No one will prosecute. He will live a nice retired life. So I don't know why he keeps doing this unless his finance greatly depends on these people. And, and his son's painting going to be stopped selling.
Well, it's the party, too. I mean, the party wants that power. They don't control the House of Representatives. Who has control of the Senate? I don't even...
Democrat have control of the Senate. So
okay, so they have the Senate, they have the, executive branch, but, they don't want to lose that power, even if he's a bad president.
2024 is going to be crucial because if Republican can take over the Senate, look how many things Republican already discovered, right? That exposed.
Right.
So hopefully Republican can take over the Senate. Even you don't have the executive branch, you can impeach the president if you want. If I was Biden, I wouldn't want to run again because there's so much shit that happened.
Right.
He should just disappear in the night, but then he'll lose his influence, and the only thing I can think of is his lifestyle has been greatly dependent upon his position in the government. Mm-hmm. If you go away, I mean, there might not be money left. So, which is really sad for our country.
Well, I think I purchased a subscription to the Wall Street Journal. Why? Who pays for news? You know, but they've been offering this really low subscription for a year price, so I bought it. Wow, I am so happy I did that.
Really?
They have some great
Is that
ways.
online or?
It's online, yeah. I don't get the print copy, but it's so much different than getting your news through pundits or broadcast cable news. I mean,
Right.
because they are the narrative kings and they're playing to an audience, and I think the newspapers are to some extent, but you get in-depth reporting on every topic. You can pick and choose what you watch. You don't have the people on TV or even people online pushing over and over and over. This story, this story, this story.
Right.
You can
Same
pick the ones you want.
everyone, yeah.
And I even then I was so impressed with that, I got a subscription to the New York Times. So it takes time, though. I mean, you have to read. You have to dig into these art. You can't just read the headline in the first paragraph. You have to go through these articles. And there is actually, believe it or not, good news out there. I was really surprised. But you do have to pay for it, and you do have to spend the time.
Wow. Yeah, I'm on Wall Street Journal now. You don't have to subscribe to it. I mean, let me
It
see.
depends on the different stories. One of the benefits of
Oh,
subscribing,
subscribe now.
I get these emails with like the top 10 stories. You know, here's a summary of stories of what's in the news. You get some op-eds.
$1.50 a week. It's $1.50 a week to get that. So that's good. You can share some articles.
There was an op-ed in the New York Times, and it was the reason that I had subscribed, because I was impressed with the Wall Street Journal. But, you know, there was a Never Trumper. I'll have to post his name. I can't remember it off the top of my head now. But a Never Trumper did an op-ed in the New York Times that basically said, maybe we're the ones, you know, maybe we're the problem. And what he was talking about was all the attacks on, you know, basically the Trump supporters, saying, well, maybe we're the bad guys. Maybe it's our fault that this happened. And he goes into how, you know, the elite class, you know, push narratives and policy and things like that.
Heard about that article.
Really disadvantaged. He said things like, you know, if you look in our class, the elite class, if you will, the sort of white collar journalists, you know, the about 90% of mothers are married.
Right.
But if you go into the general population, it's a way lower number. So, you know, a lot of the policies that they put in place are doing a lot of harm to the working class, and, you know, it's not hurting them. That's basically the point, the big theme of his article. It was really, really good.
Wow.
So, and what was interesting about it is, if you read it, it's an analysis that's it's similar to like a critical race theory, a thing saying, you know, this is what's been done to the black people based on these policies. And, you know, some people go, well, yeah, but it's not like they're sitting around saying, let's hurt the black people.
Right.
But when you turn it into economics, that again, I see that as maybe a unifying opportunity between the white working class and, you know, black Americans to say, look, we're all being affected the same way by this stuff.
Well, I've seen a lot of the black, especially men. I mean, I've seen a lot of them are like they're more of a Trumper than white people. You know, I've seen a lot of that. So.
Well, I just like look locally. And, you know, Republicans like to say, well, you know, there's a lot of moderate Democrats out there. We got to reach the moderate because Republicans are so outnumbered in the electorate. But they keep electing the most progressive candidates in their primaries and even in the general elections. You know, so I don't know. I mean, I know I keep hearing they're out there. Well, if they're out there, then the message isn't getting out because, you know, the most progressive Democrats keep winning in Allegheny County.
Well, the Republicans, it really doesn't do a very good job cultivating candidates. They know this is coming in May. So let's just say you didn't know Sarah was going to get elected through the primary. That's a surprise. The minute she got elected in May, they should have been out there looking for a candidate. And They waited till the last minute. I don't think that's fair to anybody. I'm not saying even not fair to Erin, you know, because the special election is September 19th. I mean, this is a very short notice.
It is. It is. But, you know, I think there's longer term solutions. But, you know, looking at where we're at in the short term, you know, I mean, I think the decisions being made and, you know, the things that we're doing are sound considering the circumstances. But if you don't like it, then you need to have some longer term solutions. I mean, you know, PA 21 is 65% Democrat and like 27% Republican. I mean, you know, Frank Perman, you know, he was in the city. He did a ton of mailers. You know, he put himself out there. I mean, he got 11,000 votes. Sarah got 22. So, you know, how do you invest? You know, how do you encourage Republican Party to invest money and resources into a district like that? You can't.
So you don't cultivate candidate, you don't do long-term planning. And
well,
it's call the last minute so you have somebody on the ticket, and then you keep losing elections. If that's the case, I mean, so
let me ask you a question: Is a 65-27 district winnable? Would you define that as a winnable district?
I think if you have the right candidate, yes.
No, it's not.
Candidate. Well, then
I mean, if you have to choose between winnable, not winnable, I would say it's not winnable. And, you know, so if you're an investor, okay, and you know, someone says, here, I want you to invest your money in this, you know, if you're an investment advisor, you're going to advise your people to put their money in the areas where they're going to get a return.
Well, I understand your theory. If that's the case, why put up a candidate at all?
Well, it's not theory; it's analysis. It's true.
Okay, so if that's the case, why put anybody through that? Why put?
Well, because if you leave it uncontested, they just get a walk, and you know, unexpected things can happen. So you put up a candidate, they run a campaign like it's real. I mean, Frank Perman spent, what, $17,000? I did a quick look at Sarah's campaign finance. I don't think this was all in that for that seat at that time. I don't, you know, I was having trouble finding it, and I was on vacation. But, you know, $1 million was her budget.
Oh, she doesn't have $1 million. I mean, there's a lot of donors, and the Democratic Party gave her money to
well, yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
And they cultivate these candidates, right? Sarah didn't just jump on the scene. These are cultivated candidates.
Well, I understand that, but let me ask you a question. So you have an unwinnable district. You're not going to put anywhere near the kind of money that the Democrats are going to put into it. So what do? You're going to spend a lot of time and money cultivating candidates and you know, treating this like a winnable seat that's not winnable? Well, I have an answer, by the way. I don't.
Go ahead. Let me hear your answer because
you know, I think it. You know, personally, I think the local Republican Party needs to focus a lot on growth, and I think RCAC is doing that. You know, I think we need to focus on getting younger, and I think it. You know, the local committees, there's still a lot of division. You know, I think the Shaler Committee needs to do a lot to grow. RCAC could show numbers where they, you know, grew over the last few years, and they're adding new committees and things like that. But so I believe that, like you're saying, you have younger people coming up wanting to get into politics, and they're the people you put up in these districts, people that, you know, they can benefit from getting their name out there. They can benefit from learning how to do the campaigns and proving themselves. So there's a benefit to it. Instead of just being a placeholder, it becomes development. It becomes a development platform. And you know, I mean, I don't know how that redistricting went down, but, you know, in the future, I mean, obviously you try to argue for more fairness in the redistricting, but, you know, I think at least then you're running candidates. You're not necessarily going to put a ton of money on them, but it becomes part of that developing candidates for other offices.
I think RCAC needs to develop a younger, more diverse, when they grow the party, they need to grow more diverse and more
How do you do that?
Well, you got to reach out. You know, you go to the RCAC picnic. We talked about it. There's
Well, I
very
mean,
little diversity, and you know, we have the log cabin Republicans. They're not getting a lot of attention from
it's
RCAC.
easy to say things. I mean, it's really easy to say, just get younger, just recruit more young people. But, you know, you look at just nationally and how the party is, that's not something that you can just do. Now, I agree with you. I don't know what efforts are being done. I don't
Right.
know what things are being done to rectify that, but it's not as simple as saying it.
And you know, as a young, you know, conservative person, I don't necessarily identify myself as a pure Republican, but I am definitely conservative. I think I'm, in certain views, I'm conservative. In certain views, I'm more like, you know, libertarian. But you go into a lot of these RCAC meetings. I have to be quite honest. You know, as a Chinese person, you don't necessarily feel as welcome. If you talk to log cabin Republican, they probably would tell you the same thing. So you got to have some kind of I think the mentality have to change a little bit. If you talk to some of the young people, they don't feel like they're being women. You know, they don't feel like they're being well included or taking in. So I think those are the things that needs to be corrected.
So what do you do? How do you correct them?
You know, it's from the top down. You got to be more focusing on developing, you know, maybe have committees to focus on developing women, you know, developing LGBTQ community. You do the boxes like the Democrats do. They're very successful at it. They make people, rather their actual policy is good or not, but they make people feel included. If you go to a Democrat event, it's very diverse. You go to a Republican event, not so much. So I think that's, you know, what you have to look at. But if you just put up candidate as a placeholder, keep losing elections, your constituents, your volunteers and donors, they're going to be like, well, this is ridiculous, right? I'm not going to waste my time or money. I mean, how many
Well, do you think Joe Rocky's a placeholder?
I don't even know what he's doing. I have not seen any campaign happening. I have not seen what he's doing. I mean, I understand he's getting good endorsements, but I haven't been out there to see exactly what he's doing.
Right.
I hope he's not just a placeholder. I hope.
No, I don't think he is. I mean, I think that, you know, the parties, both parties will invest in the candidates that they think can really win.
Well, I think Sarah was a surprise, right? On the Democrat side, Sarah was.
Well, you know, that's my feeling is becoming, again, how we started this is, you know, you keep saying that there's moderate Democrats out there, but yet then why do they keep, even amongst themselves, electing the most progressive candidates? So, you know, I saw a piece, and I mean, the Republicans are not going to win by becoming just like the Democrats. So you can't just look at what the Democrats do and say, oh, let's just do that. Well, you know, because they're Democrats. Why would anyone want to change? You know, so you have to find your own identity. And, you know, I think the simple answer to me is grow. You know, I mean,
how do you grow? That's the whole thing.
What's that?
How do you grow?
I think the county committee is focusing on growing. I don't know if all the local committees are. I don't feel like Shaler is doing enough in that respect. So,
no.
You know, that's something I can control. That's something I can contribute to. So, you know, I see that as constructive criticism. You know, it's really easy to criticize. You know, so they should do this, they should do that, but you know, somebody has to actually implement and make those things happen.
Right.
So, you know, I think, you know, I personally, you know, if I could, you know, was God of the Republican Party, I would change a lot of the messaging. But I can't control that. And even the Republican committee can't necessarily change that. You know, you can try to influence it over time, but it's not something you can control and just make a decision and change it.
Right.
So, yeah, I think how we position ourselves on different issues and, you know, how we motivate voters and things, all that kind of contributes into the messaging. You know, I think we're missing some opportunities there.
No, yes, absolutely. So you are
And
part of
to
the.
that to me plays into your point, like how do you appeal to different demographics? And yeah, I personally would spend more time with the log cabin Republicans locally and figure out how to leverage that.
Well,
But
it's amazing because if you think about it, most immigrants are conservative. A lot of the African
right,
American community are conservative. And a lot of social issues, the Latinos are conservative. But again, the Republican not reaching out to those demographics. Why is that?
well, how do you reach out?
Well, small
I mean,
business owners.
what is the thing that they should do that you're not seeing them do?
Well, they're not reaching out to those demographics by just going to talk to them, to invite them to meetings and say, hey, this is what we believe. We believe that's what you believe. And,
Who should do that?
the local committees and then the RCAC as a
I,
general needs
well,
to
I think local
figure out.
committees is where the problem lies right now. Yeah, I agree. I totally agree with you.
Yeah, they have to reach out and say, look, we all believe in the same thing. You can go to any 7-Eleven owned
Yeah.
by Indian person and you say, we believe in small government, low taxes. They're not going to tell you no. We believe
They're-
men are men, women are women. They're going to say, yes, we agree with you.
So we do have in Allegheny County an outreach, if you will, for women. We have the Allegheny County Council of Republican Women. I think Erin does a great job. I mean, she leverages her relationship with Scott Pressler. She put together this Patriot story time for libraries
Yes,
and
she
things
does
like
a
that.
great job.
I
Yeah.
mean, I cannot fault that group at all for any. Now, how big is it? It's a handful of people, but she's out there doing it. So.
Yeah.
I think it might take a little time too. Not a little; it might take a lot of time. But
Yeah, and I believe even some of the people that's transgender will believe in small government, low taxes, and
yeah,
secure the border. I mean, talk about things that everybody can agree upon. Forget
yeah,
about take the abortion issue out, take some of the controversial issue out, focus on things we can all agree upon. You don't tell me you're going to go to any of the Democrats say, would you like to pay less taxes? They're going to tell you, no, we want to
right.
pay more taxes, right? Would you like government to get more involved with your personal life? They'd be like, no, we don't want that. So,
You know what the Democrats do? They can just totally pivot their position the way the wind blows, and they're not held accountable. Have you noticed that?
that's because of the media.
Yeah. So, I mean, did you know that the NAACP in Oakland, California, issued a statement saying that, basically attacking the local government, Democrats, saying that they have a terrible crime problem because of the anti-police rhetoric, the defund the police stuff that was going on. So, basically it sounded like it came from Republicans.
Mm-hmm.
And this was the NAACP. But, so everybody knows what the Democrats did during the summer and after. But then they just pivot and say, the Republicans are really the ones trying to defund the police because they're going after federal law enforcement. Saying that the FBI is being unfair, and it's garbage. It really is garbage. But people aren't paying attention.
Yeah.
They say one thing one day and just say the exact opposite the next day, like they never changed. Like that's what it is. And unless the media or someone's holding them accountable, in some cases, people see it. But you don't have that media pounding it every day.
No.
Look at what they did. Look at what they did.
Yeah, well, defund the police is killing LA County. I mean, they letting Sherwin Oaks used to be thriving, used to have a lot of the musicians lived there. Now they have people doing drugs on the street, and it's a big problem. And a lot of the people that live in Sherman Oaks that were musicians all moved to Nashville. So Nashville is booming right now. So what are you going to do? I mean, the conservative policies lead to prosperity. It's proven. People are leaving liberal states to go to those conservative states, leaving blue state to go to red states. I mean, last year Los Angeles County lost 92,000 residents.
Yeah.
Like my aunts and uncles
have to have public safety. I mean,
right, you have to. My aunts and uncle just came in from California. They looked around Pennsylvania. They're like, everything's green, taxes are low. They asked me what our personal income taxes are. I said, well, it's 3.075. They said, oh my gosh, so low. You don't have taxes on clothing? Their question, how do you pay for everything? I'm like, yeah, everything got paid for. And, we live our lives. And I said, in Pennsylvania, we complain how high the taxes are, but they're coming from California. I said, maybe you should move from California to Pennsylvania. You live like millionaires and pay less taxes. But yeah, they say they pay about 33% income tax. They're retired. That's just state and local taxes.
Wow. Wow. 30%?
33. My uncle said he paid about 30%.
Well, yeah, that's why people are leaving.
Yeah, it's absolutely ridiculous. Somebody got to pay for those crack pipes they're handing to them. On that note,
there goes that conservative rhetoric.
Right. On that note,
I think I'd like to hear what Brandon says about it. We could, hide his face if you want. Just put his voice on.
He can come on. I mean, he's a very talkative person. Yeah, bring him on.
I mean, is he he wants to bash Barbie, or what's his?
He just want to talk about Barbie. He liked the movie. He likes the movie. He doesn't want to bash.
I talked with him some last night about it.
Yeah, what did he say? Was it scary?
I mean, it seemed like he and I both had very similar views on it. So,
well, it would be interesting to hear from a 12-year-old going to 13. He's a fairly mature boy, but still he's a young kid, you know. But those in 10 years, he'll be 22 years old. That will be our future. It will be interesting to see what a 12-year-old think.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'll let him know. He'll be excited. I'll let him know.
Okay.
He's got a brand new computer, so yeah, he can come on.
All right.
On that note, well, glad we're back. And then I'm going to schedule Moms for Liberty to come on the show.
Okay.
There are quite a few people we're waiting for, you're done with all your vacationing. When's the next 3 weeks vacation?
Not till January.
Oh, okay.
I am going away for a week after Thanksgiving, but that's just a 1 week. And then,
well, at least you're not going away right before the elections now, which is good. I think we should get
there's one in April.
But... Yeah. We should get Erin on here.
Oh,
for the special election.
Yeah.
We should get her on. All right. On that note, thank you so much, everybody.
Okay. Bye, Sherry.
Bye.